Hey everyone, and welcome to this tutorial teaching you the simple but versatile techniques needed to edit an engaging video like this one for your business, NGO or project for free using Davinci Resolve. Follow the link below to download the clips I used if you want to follow along. Now, before you start, don't forget to make sure that you are in the editing panel, which you can do by selecting this icon at the bottom of your screen. Davinci is fairly intuitive, but you need to understand that your project will be represented by the coloured shapes in this timeline space. You can add numerous layers of visual and audio media over one another. Any visual media is on the top half of this panel. It's represented by any shapes on any row labelled with V for video or visual, and any audio media will be placed on the bottom half on the rows labelled A for audio. So don't forget that this timeline is a chronological representation of your video project. The start of the project is here on the left, and the further right you go, you can follow the time code labelling on this top axis to see the continuation of minutes and seconds. Okay, with that done, let's get started. So once you've got Davinci Resolve open, the first thing you want to do is to create a new project. This is my new project area. Now, for the sake of today's tutorial, I'm just going to show you a little keyboard viewer because I will be using some keyboard shortcuts that you can use too at home. And if you look up here, if I'm going too fast, then you can see exactly what I've been pressing on the keyboard. Now, the first thing you want to pay attention to in your Davinci Resolve workspace is this media pool. This is where any clips, graphics, or audio that you want to use is going to go. So I've actually got mine ready. I'll open my Finder, and I just want these 4 bits of media here. I just clicked and dragged it over, and now you can see that they're appearing in my media pool. What I'm going to do is double click on the first clip that I want to insert onto my timeline. This part below is my timeline. This is where I'm going to be dragging anything that I want to appear in my final video. I've double clicked, and now you can see that in this box has appeared the video. This is not a preview of my final video, but just a preview of anything I double click from my media pool. Now it's quite a long clip. I don't want to use all of it, but I think I want to start about here. I'm going to press I, which stands for in. That's my in point. And all I'm doing right now to kind of drag through this clip is just clicking on this little marker here and dragging it through. This little spot shows where I started my in points, and now I'm going to drag it through to find where I want my out point. So I don't really mind this person walking over, but I think I'll end it right about there, so it's just a couple of seconds long. So now what happens is I can click on this thumbnail up here in my media pool and drag it down to my timeline. Make sure I'm starting right at the beginning by dragging it all the way over to the left. And now you can see I've actually got something on my timeline, and this appears over here. Let me move this for a second. So what you see here is the preview of my actual video, my actual timeline. So if I just press the space bar to play what's on my timeline, it's going to play in that right-hand window. And I'd say that's a great length, so I'm pretty happy with that. But I don't actually need the sound. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click and then right click on here. And you can see where it says link clips. I'm going to click on that because what this is here, this blue rectangle represents the video. You know that because it says V1 here for video. This is A1 for audio. But I don't actually need the audio from this clip. So by unlinking those clips, when I click on each one, they're now separate rather than being adjoined as they were before. So that means I can just click on the green box, which is the audio, and press the backspace to delete it. So let's move on. If I press the down arrow, then that will take me to the end of that clip. And what I want next is double clicking on this clip of me speaking. Now, obviously I don't want the whole clip because you can see I'm messing around with my phone to begin with, so let's just get to where I start talking by dragging along this pointer again. Great, so I'll start about there just before I open my mouth. Press I to set my in point, and now clicking and dragging to find where I stop talking. Right here where I go off screen is a great place to stop, so I press O to set my out point. And once again, I've set where I want the in and out point to be, which means when I click and drag this onto my timeline, it's only going to include the parts that I selected there. Let me move this again. So one more thing I want to add on the end is my logo. So I just literally, you can see that's my logo. I clicked and dragged it to the end. You can also see at the top of this timeline that there's a kind of time code. So that's at 0. When I press the down key, it takes me to the end of each of these individual clips. So after that first clip of me with my camera, that takes me to about 2 seconds. That next clip lasts about 13 seconds. And then this last clip here takes me on another 5 seconds, which is a little bit long. So I can just click on this to shorten it down, click and drag. And there you go, that's 3 seconds. I don't know, I'll go for somewhere in between. Then that looks great. Okay, so we're going to try and do something a little bit more advanced now. I'm just clicking on this clip that I've added of my logo. Now, let me go over to this tab here where it says Inspector, and this just shows you all of the properties of whatever you have highlighted on your timeline. Now, since this is a graphic, it has a slightly different interface and properties as, say, a video clip. But that's absolutely fine. So basically this is a bit big. Let me make sure you can see the keyboard shortcuts here. It's a bit big, so what I'm going to do is scroll down until I find the property called zoom. Now this is to do with the size. So since it's a bit big, I'm just going to click and drag it down. If I drag up, it takes it bigger, but I want it to be smaller. So I'm clicking and dragging until it looks a size that I'm happy with. I'm pretty happy with that, so 62. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use something called keyframes to adjust this property and make it change as it goes from frame to frame, which can create some really cool effects. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, just watch and hopefully it will make more sense as I go through. So what I'm doing now is I'm pressing the right arrow key. You can see that this is taking my timer through frame by frame. I'm just going to go about 5 keys over. That takes me to here. Now, if I zoom in with Control+, you can see a little bit more clearly. I'm not at the start, I'm a little bit further in to where this graphic starts. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to click on this little diamond. Now that adds something called a keyframe, which means when it gets to this frame, this piece of media will have that property. But if I now go back to the beginning of this clip, I'm going to click on this keyframe again, but I'm going to change the zoom so it's actually closer to, we'll go with, let me double click, I can even input it 0. So now what I have is this piece of media starts being 0 on the zoom property, but if I press the spacebar to play, you'll see that by the time it gets to about 5 frames in, so it happens pretty quickly, it's back up to that size I chose at the beginning, which creates this effect of it getting bigger. It doesn't go quite to real time when I'm playing it back on here. It will do when the video is exported, so it can seem a bit jumpy. But this is actually a very smooth effect, as you'll see in the final video. And I'm really happy with how that looks as it is, actually. So I'm going to leave it exactly like that. And I know I keep playing around with this, but I'm just going to make that a little bit shorter because I think 4 seconds was too long. Hopefully you're still following. So now I'm just going to press Command and the minus and plus to zoom in and out until I'm happy with how zoomed in I am to my timeline. And let's go and finish this up a bit. There are a few more things I want to do. So, coming back to the beginning here, I actually want to add some text. So, moving this out of your way again, what I'm going to do is, you can see over here that I've got the media pool selected. Ooh, if I click on it again, it just deselects it and it disappears. But instead of the media pool, I want the effects library, because in the effects library, it has a load of effects, as you'd imagine. So I'm going to click on titles here, and then what I want is text. So I'm clicking on text and clicking and dragging over to here. Let me zoom in a bit. Actually, I can add that a little bit earlier, but again, just clicking and dragging to trim it down to the length that I want it to be at. Right now it just says title. Obviously, I don't want it to say title. So what I can do is double click on the text, and if you've still got inspector selected over here, then actually you can do everything in here. So let me rename this to Brussels Travel Vlog, and maybe I'll actually just press enter between those two so they're on different lines. Okay, I don't love the font, so one that I love to use is Railway. I can change the font here, and then I can change what it looks like. Let's go for semi-bold italic. I could change the color if I wanted to, any of these properties, but today let's try and keep it quite simple. I want to go for all caps. If any of this is too much for you, you don't have to be doing every single one of the things I change, but you can go back and watch this video because I think a lot of the techniques I'm teaching you are going to be useful for a lot of different scenarios. So it's great for you to see what I'm doing, even if you're not doing every single one of them the first time. So now I'm just going to align this to the center, and I think that looks a lot better. But I'm going to do one more thing as I'm scrolling down. I'm not going to look at all of these, but I would like a drop shadow here. So if I just adjust this offset a little bit, then now you can actually see there's a shadow there. It's a little bit too harsh, so I'll change the opacity down a bit. And I think that looks pretty great. I think it can be better though. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to head back to the effects library. Oops. And rather than titles, I'm going to go for video transitions. And I'm going to select cross dissolve, click and drag to the start, click and drag to the end of that, and then just adjust it so it's a little bit shorter. But cross dissolve, as you would imagine, means that this is going to dissolve from whatever the clip is on the same line. So you can see this is video 2, so this has nothing before it on this line of video, which means that it's just dissolving from nothingness into text. Let me press play. That actually happens pretty fast, so let's make that a little bit longer, the whole clip a bit longer, and then we can make the cross dissolve effect a bit longer too. As you can see, it's lagging a bit because my computer is trying to keep up with the screen recording and everything, but that's fine. So to make this look even a bit better, I'm going to click on the clip of me with the camera underneath, which is this blue clip here on the first line of video, and I'm going to head over to the inspector here. Now, as you can see, again, every time I'm on this inspector, it's different depending on what type of media I'm dealing with. For the video, this is what it looks like, and what I want to change now is the opacity. And I'm going to use keyframes again, just to show you what it does on a different value again. So right now opacity is at 100, which means that it's a completely opaque video. But let me add a keyframe here. So anything up to this point where I'm pressing the keyframe will be 100. But now if I go forward 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just using that side arrow again, 5 frames, and I click on the diamond again, I'm going to add another keyframe, but this time let me take the opacity down to about 60. Now, since there is nothing underneath this line of video, the software assumes that that means it's just black underneath. So what you can actually see is that the video looks like it's getting darker as it gets less opaque. And this is nice because it helps the text to stand out more, which is why I'm going to use it. So if I'm just clicking on this timer here and dragging it along, I can see a bit more quickly what it's going to look like. And actually I like that. I'm not going to add any effect at the end. I'm just going to keep it dark, and then it's going to jump straight to this next clip when the time comes. So I'm really happy with that so far. Let's zoom out again. And I think that all that's left to add now, let's go back to our media pool, is the music. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just click and drag the music down to the line below audio 1, because if I just dropped it here, then the audio that I had before would just disappear. So let's not do that, let's put it below. This is a track that I chose because it's royalty free and free, which means that I can use it on this video to show you guys, but that's a topic for another day. Let's click and drag the timer right to the end here. And actually from here onwards, I don't need the music anymore because that's where my video ends. So as a little keyboard shortcut, if you've got any type of media that you want to cut at some point, press Control and B at the point you want to split it. Then what I can do is just select the clip after I don't need it anymore, backspace to delete. So now I've just got this music soundtrack that lasts for only the duration of my video. So let's see what that looks and sounds like so far. So space bar to pause that. You can see we've got a problem in that the music sounds great, but it's so loud that you can't hear the audio on this clip where I'm trying to talk here. So I can click on this clip over here, and you can see when I've got audio selected, one of the things I can do is bring the audio up and down. And one thing that's really useful for this is if you see on the toolbar down here, if you click and then click on this, that means that you can see the audio waveforms, which, let me just click and drag to enlarge these audio bits of it. You can see with these audio waveforms how loud this music clip is compared to how quiet this clip of me talking is. So let me click here and actually make it a little bit louder again. I don't want to exaggerate too much, be careful with this, so I'll take it up to about 8. So I've increased the volume on me talking by 8. Then I can click on the music and let me decrease that by about 20. And let's see how that sounds now. That's not too bad. I think we can go even further with it. So I'm going to take this down to 25, and then I'll click back on the clip of me talking and I'll take it up to 10. And that sounds good. So let me just use those up and down arrows to get to where I start talking. And a little trick that you can use here is, once again, using those keyframes, but this time on audio, just to show you how you can create a kind of getting louder or getting softer effect. So I'm going to click on this keyframe here, right where it starts where I'm talking, but I have the clip of the music selected. So what that means is that the volume is going to be at this level when I start talking. But let me go back by about 5 frames and click on this again. And actually, I'm going to make it a little bit louder beforehand, because since there's no audio before, there's no reason why the music has to be that quiet. And actually, let's make that about -15, so that's even louder. That means anything before this keyframe here is going to be -15. So let's, again, using those arrows, take it to where I stop talking. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because I actually stopped talking a little bit before. Click on that keyframe, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 forwards. And at this point, I think we can make the music even louder again. So we can take it all the way up to about -15. So let's see what that sounds like. And at that point, you can see it's a lot more obvious where we have that crescendo when the music gets louder again. So let's have a little look at what the final video looks like. Hi, my name's Emily. I'm originally from the UK, but I've been lucky enough over the last 5 years to live in 4 different countries. And for the last year, Brussels, Belgium has been home. So today I'm going to show you around. Let's go. Now, the final thing to note about when you have created a video is that there's no way you can share it when it's just like this. All you've got right now is a timeline of video editing. You need to export the video in order for it to be a file type that can be delivered. So I'm going to click over here on Deliver. The only tabs you really need to concentrate on for now are this Edit tab, which we've been playing with the whole time today, and then the Deliver tab. There are lots of other ones which have a lot of other capabilities on Davinci Resolve, but for now this is all you really need to know about. Now, what you can see over here are all of the different decisions you can make on what your final export will look like. Now, what I would recommend for a regular video file that you're going to share somewhere like Facebook or YouTube would be something like this. So first of all, name your file. Let's call it Video Editing Tutorial. Where do you want to save it? Click on Browse. Today, I'm just going to save mine, if it wants to keep up with me. Let's just save it on the desktop in this folder I've got called Editing Tutorial. So click on Save. Now, do you want this to be saved as single clips or individual clips? A single clip, please. Video, export video, QuickTime H.264 is perfect. And then if you want to just, pause and look at the settings that I have, then this would be absolutely great for sharing on something like YouTube or Facebook. Now, when you're happy with your settings, you can click on Add to Render Queue. It should pop up over here. and then you can click on Start Render. This will take a few minutes or maybe even a bit longer depending on how long your video is. It's completely normal. You can see a countdown here. But as soon as the render is done, you're going to find it in the folder that you select. And that's it. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this tutorial useful. Please share your questions in the comments, and don't forget you can download the exact files that I used to create this by using the link below. See you in the next one.